Hoi hoi. If you're in the world of sound design or audio, you know there's an endless stream of tools that you can use for your work. And it seems like the best stuff or the coolest stuff seems to be so expensive that we can't even get our hands on it. While yes, some of those paid tools can become very useful and are very handy to have as you become more advanced, there's also an insane amount of free tools that you can use that are just as powerful and just as good as the paid stuff that's out there. And even though I've been working in the field of sound design for about 12 years now, there's still a bunch of free tools that I use basically every single day. So let's get into some of my favorite free sound design plugins that I use all the time. And yes, before you ask, there are links to all of these to download in the description below. First up is the Melda Production Free Bundle. Many of you probably know about this one, but Melda Production makes a ton of plugins useful to any composer or sound designer. Melda has a massive free bundle of pro-level plugins for anyone to use, and I recommend them to basically everyone, especially if you're using a DAW like Reaper, which doesn't come with a ton of plugins on its own. Now, we're not going to dive into every single plugin inside this bundle because there's a lot, but it comes with compressors, EQs, reverbs, distortions, and a lot of fun effects too. More than enough for pretty much anyone. Next up is the UHE Tyrell N6. The UHE Tyrell N6 synth is a great place to learn the skill of synthesis if that's something you're not super comfortable with yet. And it's got basically everything you need. It's got 2 oscillators, LFOs, filters, envelopes, and more. I reach for it every time I need something simple and quick and doesn't really need the power of something like Serum, Massive, or Vital. Though also, speaking of Vital, the amazing synthesizer, the base version of that is also free, so feel free to check that out too. But if you're just getting started and you want to learn how most synthesizers out there work, the Tyrell N6 is a perfect starting point. And it can do a lot of sound design stuff too. Now let's talk about the Valhalla Supermassive plugin. Supermassive is an awesome reverb delay thing. If you ever want to create otherworldly, ethereal reverbs and delays, this is the place for you. Just listen to this sound dry. And then listen with Valhalla Supermassive on top. Everything Valhalla makes is gold, but if you just download their free plugins, and they have a few on top of this one, you'll get a lot out of them. Now, we're about to dive into a small bit of a musical section here. Even though we're talking sound design, using musical tools for sound effects work is really common, and you'll probably need to make sound effects that are more tonal or musical quite a bit throughout your career. So with that, let's talk about Spitfire LABS. Now, basically every music producer out there knows about Spitfire LABS, especially the piano. It's so good. It's in fact the piano I was using in the Valhalla Supermassive example earlier. But Spitfire LABS is more than just a simple soft piano. It's a collection of really fun, great sounding, super unique virtual instruments. They have everything from guitars, drums, bass, strange atmospheres, textures, and even a foghorn. You can take these sounds, morph the hell out of them, and bam, sound design. Now, we talked about a piano earlier, but let's talk about the infinite space piano. And you remember how I talked about how Spitfire LABS' piano being really good, but I like the infinite space piano even more. Let's think about it this way. If Spitfire LABS' piano is our stodgy old dad piano, the infinite space one is our way cooler uncle piano that lets us listen to jazz records and smoke jazz cigarettes. And now that no one's confused with that analogy, let's continue. This is a gorgeous, ethereal, emotional piano virtual instrument that's available totally for free. If you need to make people feel like they're in space or all nostalgic with minimal effort, this is the tool for you. Now, let's get orchestral and talk about ProjectSAM's free orchestra. If you ever need to do some orchestral music or sound design using orchestral tools, ProjectSAM's free orchestra is a great place to start. They have a ton of super great cinematic sounding orchestral instruments in there, totally for free. And while yes, you could use this all for music, I love their dystopian drone section so much for sound design work. Alright, I know, let's stop talking about music right now. We're here to talk about sound design, and we're not here to talk about the worst thing in the world, which is music. That's disgusting. So let's shift back into synthesis land and talk about the Eventide Pendulate. And I know I mentioned the Tyrell N6 synthesizer earlier, and that's a great one, but if you want a synth that's absolutely buck wild and insane, Pendulate is it. Do I fully understand how it works? Absolutely not. Do I love the results? 100% yes. Whenever I need to just shrug and try to make stuff and see what the hell comes out on the other side, this is where I reach. Now, while we're in synthesis land, let's talk about VCV Rack. If you're interested in getting into the world of modular synths, but don't want to sell both of your livers to be able to afford it, VCV Rack is a great place to start. It's basically a super accurate software emulation of modular synthesis. You can get quite literally thousands of free modules from their website as well. All you need to do is download it and download a bunch of free modules and start plugging virtual cables into other places right away and hope that what you make doesn't sound like garbage. Now, the main downside of the free version is you can't run it as a virtual instrument inside your DAW, so it only runs standalone. Still, it's a perfect place to learn synthesis or modular synthesis as a whole. Second to last is the Yuhi Protoverb. If you've watched this channel before or just know me at all, then you know how much of a reverb pervert I am. I love using weird sounding, over-the-top, strange reverbs that make my sound design sound absolutely insane. Well, Yuhi Protoverb is one such a reverb. It has a crazy simple interface, but boy does it sound good and weird as hell. And it's meant to simulate the sound of rooms, including the strange and sometimes very pleasant reflections that can happen in them, or it can sound absolutely buck wild and sound like ass. But it's meant to be somewhat random, and the people who make it actually want you to send your best and your worst presets to them so that they can learn more about this random synth that they created. Love it. And last on this list is Paulstretch. Most of you know about this one already, but Paulstretch is a magical, beautiful, time-stretching plugin. It's famous for this Justin Bieber song being slowed down by 800%, which sounds absolutely fantastic. And it's also known for helping the sound designers of The Batman create the sound of the amazing Batmobile in that movie. Anytime you need to stretch a sound out and keep it sounding smooth, this is it. Take anything you want and stretch it out over the course of days if you want. For example, let me take what is probably the greatest song ever written and stretch it out over a crazy amount of time. Now, as a heads up, what you want to look for is called PaulXstretch, which is the latest version that comes with a nice user interface and works as a plugin inside your DAW. But with all that information, I know exactly what you're thinking at this very moment. But it costs you double chocolate s'more delicately roasted over a sweet cherrywood campfire, you say. Do I really need all these plugins? No, not really. Over time, you'll find that you reach for just a few sound tools most days. It's good to always go out and experiment and try stuff out, of course, and odds are, though, you'll find only 2 to 3 of these tools useful in your workflow right now. And then you might come back to the other ones later on. So with all of these free tools, you have more than enough to create some absolutely fantastic sound design. I hope this list was helpful for all of you. If you liked the video, consider subscribing, and for those of you who want to push your game audio career further, sign up for the newsletter. Through this newsletter, you'll get 2 free courses that'll help you start getting paid for your game audio work, even if you're a beginner. Link in the description or in the card up above. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Go pet a dog.